Welcome back to the Holy Discussion. If you're new here, be sure to hit that subscribe button, like this episode, and share it with your friends. Don't forget to press that bell icon so you don't miss any future deep dives. Today we're diving deep into one of humanity's biggest questions: what happens after we die? We'll be looking at this through the lens of the Bible and exploring its teachings on the soul, heaven, and hell.
It's a topic that has generated so many different interpretations and beliefs throughout history, even within Christianity itself.
Oh, absolutely. There are so many different perspectives. So let's jump right in. One of the things that really stood out to me in our source material was this whole idea that death wasn't part of God's original plan for us. Like, it wasn't meant to be this way.
Exactly. The idea presented is that death entered the world because of sin, a deviation from the intended design of eternal life for humanity.
Wow. Yeah. It's a pretty profound shift in perspective. If we were actually created for eternity, for a life that never ends, how should that change how we live now?
It really makes you think about the weight of our choices and how they can have consequences, not just in this life, but potentially in the next one. It suggests that we as humans have a much bigger role in shaping our destinies than we might realize.
It's almost like we're given this amazing gift, this potential for eternal life, and then we also have to deal with the fact that what we do can affect that. But this whole idea of death being a consequence, it also brings up some big questions about what actually happens to us when we die. Like, what exactly is this soul that's supposed to live on?
Right, yeah.
Our source material points to Genesis 2.7, where God breathes life into Adam to kind of illustrate this concept.
It's such a vivid image, that breath of life representing something separate from the physical body, something that's given by God. And it's fascinating to consider how this whole soul concept is further developed in Ecclesiastes 12.7. It talks about the spirit returning to God who gave it.
Okay, yeah. So it's suggesting that we're more than just our bodies. We're also spiritual beings, and our existence goes beyond our physical selves. That makes you wonder what happens to those souls once we're gone. There are a lot of different beliefs about this out there, and our source actually addresses some common misconceptions. One of them is the idea of the soul just being completely annihilated after death. Like, it's just gone.
That's right. And the source material uses passages like Matthew 25, where Jesus talks about things like eternal punishment and hell to address this.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that seems pretty straightforward. So if it's not annihilation, what about the idea of soul sleep? The idea that the soul kind of stays dormant or asleep until the resurrection?
Well, the source uses Paul's words in 2 Corinthians to counter that idea. In that passage, he talks about being away from the body, but at home with the Lord, which suggests some kind of conscious existence separate from the body, even after death.
So no annihilation, no soul sleep. It seems like we're being led toward this idea of a continued conscious existence after death. But where exactly does the soul go? Our source lays out two very distinct and eternal destinations: heaven and hell.
Yeah. And to really illustrate the reality of those two destinations, the source uses one of the most powerful stories in the Bible, the parable of the rich man and Lazarus in Luke 16.
Ooh, yeah. That parable always gets to me. It's about this rich man who lives this life of luxury and ignores all the suffering around him. And he ends up in torment. And then there's Lazarus, the beggar, who finds comfort in paradise. What's something that stands out to you about this parable?
I think for me it's the rich man's pleas for mercy, even from hell. It really emphasizes the agonizing reality of being separated from God. It's a pretty vivid picture of hell, not just as a place of physical suffering, but also of deep spiritual anguish.
It really makes you think. It really makes you consider the weight of our actions in this life. Okay, so we've talked about heaven and hell, but there's another concept that our source brings up that I think we need to explore: purgatory. I know it can be kind of a confusing concept, especially if you're new to this whole discussion. So what exactly is purgatory?
It's often understood as like a state or a place of purification for souls who aren't quite ready for heaven but aren't condemned to hell either. Think of it like a middle ground, where any remaining imperfections or attachments to sin are cleansed before going into the full presence of God.
That makes sense. And our source actually uses John 5, which talks about different types of sin, to back up this idea.
Mm-hmm.
It almost suggests that some sins are more serious than others, and some might need that purification step before entering heaven.
Exactly. It raises this really interesting question of whether all sins are actually equal in God's eyes.
It's something to think about, for sure. But then, the source seems to present a totally different idea: that Jesus' sacrifice on the cross is enough for our redemption. And if that's true, wouldn't that mean we don't need purgatory?
That's a great point. It's like we're getting two conflicting ideas. The need for purification versus the idea that Christ's sacrifice is already enough. Kind of a head scratcher, right?
It is. It is. It's like, what do we do with that?
It's a tension that theologians have been debating for centuries, really. And different Christian denominations interpret this idea differently. So maybe if you're interested in this, exploring those different perspectives could be a good next step for you.
That's a great suggestion. It's definitely something worth exploring further. But for now, let's move on to another big part of the afterlife that our source addresses. The resurrection of the dead.
Ah, yes, the resurrection. This is where the Christian faith offers a truly unique and hopeful perspective. It's the promise of a resurrected body, a body that's no longer limited by decay and suffering.
The source material really paints a vivid picture of this whole event. It describes Christ returned the dead, in Christ rising first, and then their souls being reunited with their transformed, glorious bodies. It's like this cosmic reunion, this victory party for all of eternity.
What's really amazing is that this transformation, it's not just for those who have already died. Those of us who are alive when Christ returns will also be transformed instantly. Our mortal bodies become immortal. It's pretty mind-blowing. The source even uses that phrase, in the twinkling of an eye.
I know. It's incredible, right? It's just like, bam! And then there's that ultimate victory cry, the one that always sends shivers down my spine. Death is swallowed up in victory.
It's the culmination of everything, the hope, the promise, the ultimate triumph over death itself. But it also leads to an important question. If you truly believe that death has been conquered, that there's something beyond this earthly life, how does that knowledge change the way you live right now?
It's such a powerful question. If we're not just living for this life, but for eternity, what does that do to our priorities, our values, even the way we treat each other?
It's like we're given this eternal lens to look at our choices and actions through. And suddenly, the things that maybe seemed so important before, they just seem less significant compared to eternity.
It's like you're getting a cosmic perspective, right? We start to see the bigger picture, the long view. And it's not just about what we achieve in this life, but how we contribute to something much bigger, something that will last.
Exactly. And it pushes us to live with more compassion, knowing that everyone we meet is on their own eternal journey.
It's like we're all in this together, walking each other home in a way. And our actions, our words, our love, they can all make a difference. Not just in this life, but forever.
It really is a profound responsibility, but it's also an incredible privilege to be a part of something so much bigger than ourselves, to play a role in this grand story of redemption.
It's awe-inspiring when you really think about it. We're not just living for ourselves, we're living for something much greater. And that's a powerful motivator to live a life of purpose and meaning.
Absolutely. It's a call to step into our full potential, to embrace the beauty and the mystery of this journey we call life, and to make a difference that echoes through eternity.
Welcome back to the Holy Discussion. We're continuing our deep dive into what happens after we die, and we're exploring all these different concepts we find in the Bible. Before we took a break, we were talking about the resurrection of the dead, this idea of our souls being reunited with, like these glorified bodies.
It really stretches our imagination, doesn't it? To think about our loved ones, those who have died in faith, rising up again, free from pain and sickness and all the things that limit us in our earthly bodies.
It's almost like a cosmic reunion, the ultimate victory party. And what's even more amazing is that, according to our source material, this transformation, it's not just for those who have already passed away. Those of us who are still alive when Christ returns will be transformed too, like instantly.
It says, in the twinkling of an eye, our mortal bodies will become immortal.
Wow.
It's such a powerful image of complete and total transformation.
It really is. Yeah. And it leads to that incredible declaration, death is swallowed up in victory. For those who believe, it's not just some nice saying, it's like a statement of reality, a truth that changes everything.
Absolutely. But it also makes you wonder, doesn't it? If you really believe that death has been conquered, how does that change how you live your life right now?
Yeah, that is the question, isn't it? It's a big one.
Yeah.
We're not just living for this life, but for eternity. How should that affect our priorities, our values, the way we treat others? Everything, really.
It's like you're looking at your choices and actions through a lens of eternity. Suddenly, the things that may have seemed so important before, they don't seem so big anymore when you compare them to eternity.
It's like gaining this whole cosmic perspective.
Yeah.
Like you're zooming out and seeing the bigger picture. It's no longer just about what we accomplish in this life, but how we can contribute to something bigger than ourselves, something that lasts.
Exactly. And it invites us to live with a deeper sense of compassion, because we know that everyone we meet is on their own eternal journey.
It's like we're all in this together, aren't we? Walking each other home in a way.
Yeah.
And our actions, our words, the love we show, it can all make a difference, not just now, but forever.
It's a profound responsibility, but it's also an incredible privilege to be part of something so much bigger than ourselves, to be a part of this amazing story of redemption.
You know, what's really striking me as we talk about all of this is that this idea of resurrection, it's actually really compelling, even if you're not a religious person. I think it speaks to this deep longing we all have for something more, for a world where love and justice win in the end, a world where death doesn't get to have the last word.
I agree. It's a theme that you see throughout history and across different cultures. The hero overcoming death, the promise of a new beginning, good triumphing over evil. It's a story that's woven into our collective consciousness.
It's like a little whisper of eternity, reminding us that we're part of something way bigger than we can fully understand. Maybe that sense of wonder, that mystery, is part of what makes it all so beautiful.
That's a really beautiful way to put it. You're right. We're not meant to have all the answers. We're meant to journey with open hearts and minds, seeking truth and love and meaning and everything.
It's about the journey, isn't it? Not just the destination. You know, this whole conversation about death and the afterlife makes me think about how we tend to, put these things in a box. You know, we only think about them at funerals or when we're grieving. But what if we actually thought about these concepts more in our everyday lives? How do you think that would change things?
What a thought-provoking question. You know, I think maybe it would make us more present, more grateful for the simple things in life. It might even inspire us to be more compassionate and forgiving, more loving toward others.
It's like that saying, live each day as if it were your last, but not in a morbid way. More about just embracing life to the fullest, making every moment count.
Exactly. Living intentionally and with purpose. Truly appreciating this gift of life and the chance we have to make a difference.
It's a beautiful idea. And it makes you think about your legacy too, doesn't it? Not just about what you achieve or the things you own, but the impact you have on other people. The love you give, the kindness you share, those are the things that really matter.
Yes, the ripples of our actions, the echoes of our love, they stretch far beyond our lifetime. It's a legacy worth striving for.
It really is. You know, having this whole conversation about eternity, it can be pretty overwhelming, can't it? All these huge concepts and mysteries we can't fully grasp.
It definitely can be. It stretches our minds, challenges the things we think we know, and makes us face some of our deepest fears and hopes.
But even with all that complexity, all that mystery, I keep coming back to this one simple truth. Love matters.
You're so right. Love is at the heart of it all, at the core of every spiritual tradition. It's the ultimate reality, the driving force of everything.
Maybe that's what transcends death. You know, love is what continues on, what connects us all, both here and beyond.
That's a comforting thought. The love we share, the kindness we show, the connections we make, it all has eternal significance.
And maybe that's the key to understanding this whole mystery of life and death. Focusing on love, choosing compassion, and living in a way that reflects the best of humanity.
Beautifully said. And maybe, just maybe, by doing that, we discover that heaven isn't just a place we go to after we die, but a state of being that we can create right here and now, through our love, compassion, and connection to something bigger than ourselves.
I love that. Heaven is a state of being, a way of living, of loving, of experiencing the world. That's a beautiful thought.
And maybe that's the true meaning of eternal life. To live in a way that shows the divine spark within each of us, to spread love and connect with something beyond our limited selves, and to experience a kind of joy and peace that goes beyond time and space.
That is beautiful. And I think that's a great place for us to pause and reflect for a moment. We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, explored some really profound ideas, and wrestled with some of life's biggest questions. But the conversation doesn't end here, does it?
Not at all. We've only scratched the surface of this vast and fascinating topic. There's still so much more to explore, so much more to think about.
That's the beauty of it all, right? The mystery, the wonder, this invitation to keep searching, keep questioning, and keep growing in how we understand life, death, and everything in between. Welcome back to The Holy Discussion. As we wrap up our deep dive into what happens after we die, I want to bring up something you mentioned earlier, that idea of bringing heaven down to earth.
Ah, yes. That idea of trying to live in a way that reflects the qualities of that eternal realm, even while we're still here.
Yeah. It's a really powerful concept, isn't it? It's almost like we're not just waiting around for heaven. We're actively trying to create it here and now.
Exactly. Embodying those qualities of love, compassion, forgiveness, generosity,
Yeah.
all those virtues that we connect with, the divine.
It really makes you think, if we really embrace that idea, how different would our lives be? Would we be more patient with people who annoy us? Quicker to forgive people who've wronged us? Would we be more generous with our time and our resources, knowing that those things won't matter in eternity?
Such good questions. It really makes you reevaluate your priorities.
Right. If our earthly possessions and achievements, all of that fades away in the light of eternity, what really matters,
Yeah.
what do we actually take with us into that next realm?
I think it comes down to who we are at our core. What kind of person have we become? Have we developed a spirit of love, kindness, humility? Have we made a positive impact on the world around us?
It's like we're building this spiritual resume, not for a job or anything, but for something much bigger.
It makes me think of that passage in Matthew 25 where Jesus talks about the sheep and the goats. He says we'll be judged not by what church we went to or what we believed, but by how we treated the less fortunate.
It reminds us that what we do is more important than what we say. Faith without works is dead, as James tells us. It's not enough to just believe in heaven. We have to actually live it.
It's a real call to action, right?
Right.
It's not about earning our way into heaven, but about aligning our lives with those values that represent that eternal realm. And it's a journey, it takes constant effort and self-reflection. We're all works in progress, right?
But that's part of what makes it so beautiful, don't you think?
Yeah.
We're not perfect. We mess up. We fall down. We're always learning and growing. And it's often in those moments of imperfection that we experience the most grace and the biggest transformation.
Absolutely. It's not about reaching some perfect spiritual state in this life. It's about embracing the journey with all its ups and downs and letting ourselves be shaped by something bigger than us.
It's about surrendering, letting go of that need to control everything.
Yeah.
And letting ourselves be guided by something greater, something more loving and compassionate.
And I think that's what it all comes down to, really. Love, it's what started it all. It's the essence of the divine. It's the key to understanding life and death.
It's about choosing love over fear, forgiveness over bitterness, hope over despair, recognizing that we're all connected and living in a way that reflects that.
And maybe if we can do that, we'll find that heaven isn't just somewhere we go after we die, but something we can experience right here, right now, in the middle of our messy, imperfect, but beautiful lives.
That's a beautiful thought to end on. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the mysteries of life, death, and the afterlife. We hope this conversation has encouraged you to keep exploring these questions, to keep searching and questioning and growing in your understanding of what it means to live a truly meaningful life.
And remember, the conversation doesn't stop here. It's an ongoing journey, a lifelong adventure. Embrace the mystery, the wonder, and most importantly, embrace the love that connects us all, both here and in the beyond.
And that's it for this episode of The Holy Discussion. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this episode with your friends. Until next time, keep seeking, keep questioning, and keep the conversation going.